This program is rated MA. It contains adult themes, coarse language, sexual references, and violence.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should all acquaintance be forgot and the days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. Let's have a drink or maybe two or maybe three or four or five or six or a seven or eight or maybe even more. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. When it gets to closing time and if you still want more, I know a pub in Inverness that never shuts its door. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne.
All right, what's up, everybody? It is Open Comms Friday. Hope everyone had a good Christmas. Full cast here tonight, believe it or not. We got me, Dirk, Rain's here, LB's here, Blassum's here, the whole crew. And we also have Jintan joining us. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. How about you?
Doing good. And then Caleb Arania is here. How's it going?
Hey guys.
Somebody's like, Dirk's in his shirt. Yeah. You know what? I thought because it was
Dirk's
the year-end
in his
show,
shirt.
everybody would think, you know what? Maybe we should just sort of, maybe just dress up a little bit.
Dress up? What are you talking about?
We going full Wendy's
We're
manager
sit-
tonight.
We're sitting in front of our computers drinking on a Friday night.
Yep.
No need to dress up.
Yep.
Classy
This is my
bunch.
good hoodie. If that counts. My good hoodie.
I don't wear pants to this show. Just to let you know. You can put that image in your head.
But yeah, we're lucky to have Blasphemy here tonight for as long as he can, hold out. What happened to you this week, Blasphemy? I mean, you had surgery on your foot a couple weeks ago. You seem to be doing all right at home, and then what?
Started swelling up in the foot. Didn't know why. Got a lot of pain down the lower leg, and shortly after Christmas, probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. So that was Tuesday, early Tuesday morning. I was admitted to the ER. Said, yeah, that doesn't look right. So ended up having some swelling and some just fluid buildup. No idea why. I thought it was a staph infection. Turned out that wasn't. So I went through a course of regimens and they kind of drained it out. So yeah, he just had some fluid buildup. So
Oh, so it wasn't a
Kinda
staph
weird.
infection.
no, it wasn't. Thank God
Oh.
for that. So that's a lot better. And so he said shouldn't happen. So he wrapped it up a little bit tighter, put more compression on. Everything still looks structurally okay, but they were just kind of concerned about it. So just one of those weird things. Maybe it's a little too much holiday bliss.
Is it going to be okay to for April?
I don't know yet. I'm still. Even my specialist said probably I won't be able to walk on it for at least another 4 weeks. So, yeah.
telling you, man, it's like I told you when I thought you had a staph infection. You just soak it in a pot of Tito's, man. I've had colds. I've had like
It'll kill everything.
The shit like cures it. It's like fucking cure all.
Yeah, so I got released earlier this afternoon. I think I texted out everybody about 8:30. They were like, "Yeah, we're gonna let you go today." So I got home probably about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm so depressed. I got to do something." So here I am, just for as long as I can.
Cool.
This last time I saw you was actually when we left Kiki's, and now we just booked our Airbnb for FanFest, and it's 30 yards from Kiki's.
Awesome. Yeah, we were cutting it up there.
Kiki's is such a fucking great place to dance. It's like
It
literally
is.
the best.
It's super nice. I love it.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about what we've got planned for tonight. This is the last show of the year. You know what? When we can do it close to a weekend that New Year's Eve actually falls on, we'll do the New Year's Eve actual show. But when it's a few days off and all that kind of stuff, it's just too hard to get going. Anyways, tonight we are going to, luckily we're joined by Caleb and Jintan. I actually dialed them up today as I was trying to go through sort of a recap of still last ever show. I'll actually get to that in a second. When I was trying to do a recap of kind of what happened over the course of the year. It's like we do this show every single freaking week, and it's sometimes hard to remember, well, what the hell happened this year? So luckily two things happened today. Number one, they agreed to come on because I know that both of them kind of have a recollection, of what's gone on over the course of the year. But also LB punched in today and gave like a whole detailed list of stuff. I think you went through, what'd you do? Go through articles and devlogs and stuff, LB?
Yeah, I scrolled all the way back to January's devlogs. I gave a little synopsis for each month, and then I scrolled all the way back in INN and scrolled through that and looked for headlines and stuff that was relevant.
Amazing synopsis. It's really long.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely had a lot of stuff. Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely had a lot of stuff in there that
Kids are playing
I forgot
Minecraft this
about.
afternoon, so I just sat around and plunked away.
Minecraft.
I mean, so so much stuff goes on over the course of a year, and it's like we're obviously not going to get to all of it. I think we're getting to some of the highlights. We're not going to get to necessarily like all the wars or conflicts or battles or things like that. We've got a few of those sort of thrown in, just as sort of headline material. But yeah, we are going to do that at the end of the show. If you're able to stay around until the end of the show, we have an interesting outro that is kind of viewer inspired. Open comms inspired, with some stuff from our viewers in there and things like that. So stick around for that. We're also going to make an attempt at something here tonight, okay? And it will take place, a little bit later in the show after we've kind of gotten going. But we're going to try and take some viewer call-ins, okay? Which means that you're going to have to whisper Drayden that you want to come on and say something. I don't care if you come on and want to give a shout-out, holiday wishes, say something about CCP. If you want to throw shade on some alliance out there, if you want to throw shade on us, feel free. But really what we're looking for is we're kind of looking for what was your sort of highlight of the year, not necessarily you personally, but kind of what happened this year that you really remember and sort of why. You're not going to be sticking around to sit here and have a long conversation or anything like that because we got to keep this moving. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Don't feel bad that once you're done we kick you out of the channel. Don't
exactly,
take that personally.
Exactly.
But we're going to do it.
This is one of those things where it's like, hey, Opie Comms, first time, long time, whatever. Okay. You come on, you say what you got to say. Now we may comment about it afterwards or whatever, but it's not going to be a long ass conversation. Yeah. But getting to what somebody said there about, was this going to be the last year? All right, look, let me just say this about last week, okay? That was a bit of a gag rant that went awry and got a little too fucking serious, okay? Let me say this, okay?
It was good.
It would take a lot for us to leave INN. We have no issues technically whatsoever with INN, mainly because they don't stop us from doing whatever nutty shit it is that we do or anything like that. We don't have any problems there, and it would not be worth our while under the current set of circumstances that have existed since we got here a couple of years ago, to ever go out there and move. So that being said, take last week for what it fucking was, which was Dirk being a little fucking, a little drunk. But whatever. Shit, that just happens.
Rebel.
I had a guilty morning the next morning, which I do after every fucking
Just a
open
prank.
comms.
Just a
Yeah,
prank, guys.
it was kind of like the next morning where you're like the awkward like, yeah. So hi guys.
It was his claim the means of production moment.
Yeah, it kind of went like this. About last night.
Yeah, and I was just
Yeah,
like, oh, here we
I
go.
woke up the next morning. Oh man, that was fucking dumb. But whatever. Anyways, just
Engage the backtracking device.
engage the. No, hold on. And here's what's funny. It's like I'm not backtracking because, like, in the full sense of it, like honestly, there's just no good reason for us to be anywhere like where we're on our own. I mean, number one, just from this whole thing of, you know what, it's just dumb to ask people to go to individual separate channels out there, especially when we do this thing like 2 hours a week. I've always been a big proponent of more aggregating of the media content creators out there into sort of a single place. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, who doesn't push buttons or anything like that, there's just no good reason to go out there and do that. But whatever. As far as I know, no feelings were hurt. It was more like I just woke up the next morning and go, why the fuck did I say that to the extent that I did? It was meant to be funny, and then it got serious, but whatever.
We were all on board with it, Derek. We're just like, fuck yeah, you lead that train.
I think we were just kind of in the,
Jerry
fuck it, man,
Maguire.
let's do it. Like, who's coming with me, man? Who's coming with
Dirk,
me?
We got your
Jan.
back,
Two
Dirk.
fucker train.
Thank you,
Let's
Jan.
Show me the
storming
money.
barricades.
Planned the rebellion when Sauron was actually out vacationing.
But this is the final show of the year. However, we will be back next week for the first show of the next year.
I like to say next year.
We will go for there.
We'll be back next year. We'll see you then.
Yo,
See you next year, guys.
see you next year. Later. No, okay. No, we actually have a show to do tonight. Sorry for the long intro, but I felt playing that entire song just, I don't know, was the thing to do.
That's good.
It's a fucking good song.
Yeah, I tried to find. Now, here's the thing, right? I went out looking for a Dropkick Murphys version of Old Lang Syne, right? Now that was advertised as Dropkick Murphys, but
Someone just
apparently
uploaded a
it's
different
not.
title. It's not. It's
Apparently, it's from a German group.
Die Rotenhosen or something.
Yeah.
Or, it's called something like the Totenhosen or something over there, but like Die Rotenhosen. But yeah, it's their song. Because Dirk was listening, he's like, the comments say it's different. When I listened to the other version, I was like, yeah, no, that's the
was the
exact
same
same
one, yeah.
song. And I started looking at other places. I'm like, yeah, Dropkick Murphys does not have an Old Lang Syne song. So
Now,
someone
what's
uploaded
really weird
that
about
song
it is-
and just called it Dropkick Murphys.
It's apparently okay. They called it. They must have heard it, thought it was Dropkick Murphys. Because when you listen to it, if it is a German band, they got the best fucking Irish
Yeah, when
accents.
you linked it to me, like, here's a Dropkick Murphys song, I was like, I mean, I didn't question it. It kind of sounded, that sounds like
yeah.
it.
If I hadn't read the comments, I would totally be sitting there. No, it's fucking Dropkick Murphys. Just listen to it. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I guess even Germans can do an Irish accent. I don't know. I'm still kind of blown away about that. But yeah, so
The Germans are versatile.
Rain, now you had this on there from last week, and we didn't have a chance to get to it. But
Yeah.
did you want to mention something about the fact that CSM campaigns are kicking off out there?
No, so I remember your comment last week was you couldn't really think of anything, and I was like pissed off. I was like, Dirk, there's so much shit going on this week, and one of them is being CSM. And I know we haven't really talked about that, but I know as elections start coming around the corner and people start taking it seriously, and we start getting candidates on the show or on other shows or podcasts or writing articles and this and that, I think it will definitely come to light. So people who are curious about the CSM or are debating starting campaigning for the CSM, you're already, I'm going to say, a little bit behind because there are campaigns out there. So I didn't want to go too much into it unless you guys have any more to add.
Last year, okay, I mean, this normally would be within the season where you start to get that kickoff going. Last year it was all a bit delayed. I think that the actual elections themselves didn't take place until like March, and then were announced at FanFest.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
Look, I think right now, if you are going to run,
Get your ducks in a row.
well, if you are going to run, I
Campaign
mean,
Yeah,
isn't
for
until,
sure.
like,
I mean, now's the
February,
time you begin to
right?
get
We
that
need to
stuff
get
out.
the big guys to start actually thinking about who to choose and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that
And,
Jay's actually running, because like when he first mentioned it, he was making the tweets, like, oh, Rain's going to be his Secretary of Security or something. I thought he was joking and just making some jokes, but it's like, oh no, he's actually running, so I'm glad he is, because.
Yeah, we're gonna get an unholy trinity again, right?
Yeah, Jay's a no-nonsense guy.
Aerith and Jintown.
Yeah, he's a no-nonsense guy. He'll go in there and do what he wants to do, and he's not gonna, flake out.
Start your super PACs now, Rasmus says. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, at least as of the note you had last week, we had, Claven that was set up, St. Michael's Soul, Bayard J, Commander A's, and Jay, had announcements out there on the forums. Yep. I think Jay's was the first, actually. So we'll see. I mean, again, I was reviewing the article that I wrote last year about the CSM and elections and stuff like that. Because of course we're going to have it again this year, where it's going to be the thing of, there's just not equal representation amongst all the different player groups and yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff. Hey, then you know what? Organize. Let's just say it now, fucking organize. I also say in there about the whole, no more than 2 terms thing, which, sorry, Jen, I just got to stick with that of, out of principle. Because if there's one thing I have remotely left in me, it's just a degree of principle.
If you want to be an American, Jen, you got to get used to the 2 terms max limit thing.
Yeah, but they don't have that in literally anything apart from the presidency.
Although
I could be a congressman forever, boy.
Although with the CSM, say someone goes into the CSM and then partway through the term biomasses, does someone get to go in as a stand-in for the rest of the term and then continue 2 terms after that? Kind of like a vice president can get 2 years in and then 2 full terms. Do they have something like that in place?
I don't think we have write-in candidates.
we don't have the McClurg rule yet.
Damn.
We certainly do have write-in candidates. We have people like Greedy Goblin running for it. Those are basically the equivalent of write-in candidates, just fucking memes running. The one thing I gotta say though, I wonder how long the kind of tradition that CSM 10 had when we came into power. One of the agreements we had for running in CSM 11 and also CSM 12 is that we never release, or at least talk about our decision to run until the minutes from the second summit are released, and that's kind of just as an intentional measure to stop people from basically trying to step on our toes in terms of campaigning, because we want to do as much as we can in the office before we have to step outside, and we thought that that's a more effective way of doing it. I don't think that's going to last to CSM 13.
Well, hold on, I'm sorry. Well, number one, because you've already said that you're probably running, so therefore it didn't last because of you.
I thought you were running.
Yeah, but I'm not making my posts and shit like that.
Oh.
I am running.
You are? Oh, okay. I thought you said this was over your last.
I am running.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna put my post up or actually start chilling myself out. I'm not going hard.
We lost Albie. We lost Albie.
He'll be back, I bet.
Sorry, Jin.
All right.
Oh, we lost. Oh, yeah. So now the video is all gonna get all. Well, at least for some of them.
Yeah, don't worry. The cameras will be messed up. I'm not going to go and switch around and mess, because he'll be back. He just said his computer crashed. He's going to restart. So he'll be back in a couple minutes. Just deal with the cameras for now.
But anyways, so Jintan used the Open Com show. You heard it here first as his announcement for candidacy for CSM 15?
We're the Larry King live, and he's Ross Perot.
13.
Right. 13.
No,
didn't you tease with it on the Meta Show when Aerith said that he was also contemplating running again?
Yeah, we have a nice little back and forth there, I think, about how I need to go to the next summit so that he can flip me, and I'm not going to this upcoming one.
Tommy Robs.
As CCP decided to schedule it on the dates of my fucking exams, and
oh boy,
as fun as my space job is, I don't value it quite as highly as my degree, so.
You should tell him that you want to take your exams early.
You can't do that in my university.
Oh. Rip.
Not for first year stuff. There's so many people doing the exams. It's just not possible.
But anyways, let's roll into kind of a recap of 2017. We're actually going to kind of try and take this month by month, although I think some things kind of blend into one another and stuff like that. I mean, look, coming into 2017, right? My opinion. This is my opinion, right? 2017. We were still feeling kind of the aftershocks and ramifications of the Imperium being displaced from the north during the World War Casino B war that took place April, May, and prior to that there. So I mean, we still had, we had the north that had been basically resettled by entities up there, and it was beginning to settle down. We had obviously the Imperium making their move down towards Delve and things like down into Delve and shit like that, right? No, LBU did not miss a shot. So you kind of had this year starting off with really kind of fallout from last year, right? And there were a number of anticipated changes that were coming this year and things like that. This was not a year for what I would consider to be, and even when you look at it now, big consequential war going on. There was a whole lot of settling down going on out there. Obviously, what was happening in Delve in terms of them settling in and putting their economic policies into place, and all of the economic activity that was going on down there, and ratting and mining, which we'll get to some little pieces of that along the way. But January did kind of start off with I think or it was already kind of going on at that point. The whole, what came to be known as, I think, the Winter's War, or from the Imperium side, the Traders' War, and shit like that, right? Jin, you tend to cover these things really well in your videos. What was going on at that time?
At that point, the war was just about to hit its peak. Like, I think it was, I can't quite remember if it was very late December or very early January, but that was the point at which Goonswarm had really seriously staged in and was attempting to assist Stainwagon and just drag them up by the neck of their collar, from the mess they were in.
By the neck of their collar?
But yeah, I don't question me. Just dragging them up by the scruff of their neck, and saying, "No, please, you're gonna survive for a bit longer." And then we had the whole want of a Sino issue, where AAA damn near killed, or at least damn near got caught, the entire Supercat fleet of goons that they deployed, because they'd Sino-jammed the out system where they were keeping all their supers. That was a fun time. And after that, Goonswarm kind of fell out of that conflict, and Stainwagon had no ability to defend against Legacy at that point.
Yep. So that was definitely going on. You had the first, of what would be 3 this year, Rorqual nerfs that occurred in January, and everybody sort of saw that coming, wouldn't you say?
Not to me, or?
To whoever. To whoever.
I don't think we expected that it would take that many passes.
No. I mean, I'm just talking that the one in January. I don't think you really had anybody who was up in arms over it or anything like that, right? They recognized that whatever it was, the equivalent of 5 Hulks or some shit like that worth of mining. It was just kind of
seeing the numbers
it
and
was
the
like
CSM
6
going,
Hulks.
told you so.
Oh yeah, they fucking so much of that of the whole story of the Rorqual. It's just, this is retarded. Why does this exist? Just no, you can't have a ship that's invulnerable, be able to scram things. CCP, we will abuse that. Nah, we're fine.
Well, and
Insert
that was a different
Delve.
piece of it, right? I mean, the whole battle Rorqual tackle Rorqual or whatever. That was a different piece of it.
The January nerf didn't even address that.
No, that one didn't address that.
Yield.
Yeah, it was pure yield. It was pure yield at that point on the Rorqual nerf that happened in January. But it did set up a kind of thing that ended up going on for several months. But the first one of those that happened was in January.
Right. So now that you're all done fucking smearing shit around the walls, right? The entire thing with the Rorqual was it mined so much, right? That's a half measure. They did a half measure, yeah? The Rorqual mining that much would have been fine if they had completely eliminated jump freighters from the game and made all production localized, yeah? That would have been the way to go with it. But when you don't remove the jump freighter and you allow all the ore to be exported from the regions that it's being fucking hoovered up in, you no longer have a thing where people are mining that much to support the battleship fleets they need to build at home in their space. They flood the market crashes. Because CCP is made of people that make questionable decisions at some points in time. They didn't want to anger the player base and remove jump freighters from the game, and so they didn't make production localized. They didn't force that final step. So the Rorqual was a waste. Like, it's broken. It's never going to be fixed. There's nothing you can do to fix the Rorqual. It will always be doing what it's doing to the mineral market right now. So where you can buy like carriers and dreads dirt cheap, or just build them as much as you want, or you can have like 3 and 4 Nixes in your hangar because you mined them all. Like that was making the Rorqual that strong would have been fine, and they could have left it alone like it was in January if they had done the rest of the steps that people had been asking for fucking a decade to make them what they were. Like, the entire idea behind localized production was that no singular subcap mining ship could ever mine enough, or no herd of them could even mine enough to prop up an alliance like Goonswarm's, subcapital fleets. You cannot produce enough with subcap miners to make production localized. So people were always like, hey, give us a capital mining ship. That way you can make production localized. We can just mine where we're at. We'll build where we're at. Everything will be fine. They said sure, and then didn't do the other half of it. So that's how it got to where it's at.
Right. But now, is that something you would have wanted? Forget the mining aspect of it, but everything else that jump freighters kind of bring to things, is that something you would have wanted just to curb, what was basically a combination of the Rorqual that could mine as much as it did, coupled with endlessly spawning anomalies? Like, you would have wanted the solution to be just in kind of, like the jump freighter thing?
Yeah, I think as long it doesn't matter if it's nearly impossible for you to get all the minerals that you're making in any viable way, right? Like, even if you did freighter guarding ops without jump freighters, even if you did ops where you just guarded freighters leaving your space, there's no way to put the amount of minerals into. You have chains of 100 freighters trying to leave your space after a fucking week. Goons are mining like crazy. Like, there's no way to viably bring the minerals out that fast to do what's happened to the market. I think it would have been better. Like, it probably still would have been a little broken. Yeah, I don't know. I think they fucked a lot of shit up in the past 5 years where they homogenized all the space. Like, basically any bit of Providence is just as good as most bits of Delve, except for, with a few a few exceptions in Delve where the constellations are really good. Like, you can have the same shit in just about every space. Anything under a 0.8 is pretty fucking homogenous. And that's terrible. Like, there's no reason. Everybody's like, hey, why doesn't PL fight Goons? Why? We have the North, they have the South. There's no reason to have conflict. They don't have anything we can't have up north.
Well, and that is a conversation that's now been around for quite some time. About the whole fact of there really don't tend to be very many wars of aggression where, your space is better than ours. We're going to go to war with you over it, right? I mean, we've got what we've got. They've got what they've got. They've got what they got all around the place. And generally, everybody's pretty content with the space they have.
Yeah, there's no competition.
Partly because of all the stuff from the CSM. They were basically lobbying for it for a few years, as far as I remember. I keep calling it the Minna thing because it was when Minna was basically pushing for self-sufficiency in all null. And then it's just logical that if CCP yields and bends over, you got that flat space. That's what you...
And it's kind of what's wrong with the concept of the CSM. You should not listen to the players when you design your game because there are 1,000 different play styles in this game, and every single one of those voices believes its way of playing is the best fucking way. And when you get that many voices at the same time and the game company goes in 1,000 different directions to try and make everybody happy at once, you end up with a boring, steaming pile of dog shit.
Yeah, I totally agree with the whole homogenization of space thing. That is something that continues to exist, and there's nothing that's going to fix that other than dehomogenizing it. Or
there should be a reason for me to want to go to Delph. Like, I should want to fight for that space, or I should want to fight for Fountain. You know what I think about Fountain right now? It's so fucking far from anything fun. Why would anybody ever want to live there? Other than nothing.
People
like, you
don't
get some
want to fight, and I get so far from anything, no one will ever want to come here to kill us.
I can go out there. Exactly. That's exactly it. Places like Paragon Sol, which used to be like, I don't want to live there. It's the armpit of the world. Now people are like, man, I could run my bot all day down that motherfucker, and nobody will ever bother me.
But you just mentioned one of the ideas with jump freighters. I think that's kind of a brilliant way of approaching this, because that could actually resolve a lot of problems. And there's a lot of these small things that I do think and suspect the CCP might actually do. Nerf the anomalies, give the Rorq the final pass, maybe fix the whole balancing with jump fueling, and remove the whole space cancer. I think if they do things like that, I do think that we are moving into a place where the game would be fun again. Then they just need to diversify space, so there's actually reasons to fight over different types of space.
Yeah, I think the genie's out of the bottle, kind of really with the Rorqual. I don't think you can really ever get it back in.
Well,
I think
it wouldn't be bad to kill it and put it back where it belongs in as a support ship when if they did something like nerfing anomalies and making the whole mineral market focused on moon drilling as well, because it looks as if that's where they're going to move it, so they can get rid of things like static belts and stuff, pretty much like they did with postcode.
You say that, but I mean, like, if they were to put the Rorqual back to where it was before, what do you think the mob outside the headquarters in Reykjavik would look like with pitchforks and torches, just out of the people in Delft that own 20 Rorquals or more? Not that doesn't count anywhere else in EVE. Just the outcry from one section of the game alone would be so huge. Like when you combine it all together.
But isn't it extremely useful as a defense thing with the new moon drilling, right?
No, it's so like even okay. So I don't know how you guys are doing it down there, but I know all of our rock munchers up north, they all like really gung-ho on the moons and everything like that, but because the fucking rocks keep drifting or whatever, one guy was like, I had to bounce 200 times to finish my mine pile off in my Rorqual, and it was just dumb as fuck. Because I mean, you don't have to bounce, but otherwise you risk your stupid ass drones, which are absurd. So like most of them
cost the ship.
Right, most of them decided that moon mining in a Rorqual was not something that was worth their time or energy, because you get better money out of just mining the rock anomalies, right? So I don't feel like the Rorqual as a strictly defensive piece of equipment is like, it's just trash. It'd be the same thing as it was before. It just nobody ever use it. It'd be cheaper to use an Orca for the same basic principle. You just wouldn't get the panic button, and the panic button doesn't actually. It only saves people like if they're relatively in jump range of their super cap umbrella.
And everybody's ready to go. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's basically just delaying a death that was going to happen anyways.
Yeah. Also, side note, if you guys ever look up the Sound of Thunder Alliance in EVE, they use Twitter for their like Discord, or all their pings go out over Twitter. Yeah. I was amazed when I found it, and I started talking to them today on Twitter. They blocked me. I'm a little disappointed. I think I'm going to war deck him in retribution, but he set his corp tags to 100%. He set his corp tags to 100% for a few days while his corp mined him and ratted him up in Aeon.
They get like hashtag pings.
Using Twitter for
what?
Hashtag pings. Hashtag go time boys.
The Sound of Thunder. T-Sot. Look that guy up. He blocked me tonight.
Yeah,
I told him to sit down. He wasn't excused yet, and he got mad.
Oh, T-Sot. I thought you meant T-Sock. I was like, I know who T-Sock is, but... Hashtag fleet up.
I didn't think there was anybody left in EVE like that. This dude amazes me.
That's pretty good.
Drayton's asking me, we doing some shots today, though, right? I mean, okay, look, just let everybody know, it's like we're going to come out of the gates here a little slow on the shots and things like that, because, again, we do have some things to go through. We actually got into it a little more here about kind of the whole economy thing and whatnot. And, you know, these things tend to be things where you can, like, you can literally talk for an hour or 2 hours just strictly on the state of the EVE economy, which I don't necessarily want to do tonight, you know, simply because we're trying to recap the year. This is an ongoing issue in a number of ways out there, and I am quite certain that over the course of the next year, that, you know, between Talking Stations and us and, you know, other groups out there, that, you know, the economy and the imbalances that are in there and kind of, you know, what people think as to why those exist, you know, will come up continuously. You know, we will do a shot here in a moment, Drayden. I just quick want to get through February, because February was not loaded with a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, pretty much I've got on the list here. The CSM, it was announced, was going to be reduced from 14 members down to 10. This caused a bit of an uproar out there, because by limiting it to 14, you're not getting maybe some of the bit of diversification that you got. When you had more people on there, it was slated to become more proportionally nullsec dominated, which is what it turned out to. Which is what it turned out to be.
Instead of majority nullsec, it's like super majority nullsec.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always going to be nullsec dominated simply because they are the most well-organized groups to be able to bring in that kind of voting.
Promote voting in a specific fashion. Like, what a shocker.
It's like a party system or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And exactly. And the other thing that came in February was the new Project Discovery was announced, that they were going to be rolling off of that, crazy biology looking thing, and we were going to be looking for exoplanets. That was the first time, I think, that kind of word
an utter
came
failure
out.
at that, by the way. Like an utter failure. I think I got like a less than 10% accuracy rate.
What?
At the exoplanets one?
I am so shit.
At the exoplanets one?
Oh yeah, I'm fucking junk at it.
Oh my God, Drew, you can get like you can get like above 50%.
Can you, Dirk?
Just by going, I don't know.
Yeah. See, like that's the thing is like you can game it.
Grath, you sucker.
You can game the system. I was terrible at it. I actually like legitimately was trying on every single one, and I was putting a lot of time because like I want to be right. I love astronomy. I want to find a planet. Right. Yeah, it's like I want to find a planet, and then I'm all sitting there. It's like I can't do any of this. Like even the ones that looked simple, it's like oh got you. That's just solar flares, bitch. And like you're just always wrong. You're never right on anything.
Always wrong, right?
Always. And then you're like,
like one, you're like, this is one obviously, and you're like, no. And then the next one, you're like, there's nothing here, and they're like, no, you missed this point, this point, this point.
Yeah, and you look at the points. It's like, how the hell do you see that? It's like, it's like finding a fucking marble in a bunch of ball bearings, a silver marble in a bunch of ball bearings.
Copperhead said, I finally quit being a scrub and bought a big old bottle of Tito's. See, there you go. I tried to. I went today. There's a buddy of mine from guy used to be in my corp and whatnot from back in the day, from Germany, who was over here visiting somebody. I drove 2 hours to go have lunch with him today and whatnot. And I told him to make sure that he gets a bottle of Tito's at the duty free on the fucking way out. I was gonna bring him a bottle, and I'm going, he's leaving Sunday. I know he's not gonna fucking drink it, and trying to get through U.S. security with anything liquid, you can barely get through with your own fucking bladder. But anyways, we're gonna do this shot. You know what? This is to. I hope everybody had a really good Christmas. Or whatever it is you guys celebrate. Last week was a lot of fun. We gave away a lot of stuff out there. So here's to the listeners again, and for everybody that joins us. When we come on. Thanks to Jintan and Caleb and Grath for coming on tonight. Good to have you all here. The shot's all
not that you invited me. I mean, not that you invited me into the show. I actually just walked up to your house and knocked on the door.
Anytime you want to walk through the door, the door's open.
This motherfucker quits my corp and doesn't even invite me to his year of the end show. That's fine. That's fine. Not bitter at all.
Yeah, I had to switch the nameplate. I was like, oh shit, he gave me the new nameplate.
Oh, yeah,
you were PL for 20 minutes there, Dirk, and then you.
See, there you go.
It's almost a year. It was actually over a year, I think. I think he stayed for a year.
Yeah, well, I meant his nameplate for tonight.
Oh,
he was PL labeled.
Well, I was technically there for the entirety of from the end of the World War B to now.
Yeah, a year, basically a year. It's only been a year.
Well, I think it was May of 2016 or June of 2016 that I joined.
Oh, okay. Well, about a year and a half. That's good enough. I mean,
it was after the casino war was over, basically.
You're supposed to join NC Dot though. That's the current line of.
I know it is. Okay, I know it is. I've been approached, and I have this odd. I have this thing of I think it would be weird to have me and Matterall both in the same fucking place.
Yeah. Is NC Dot like the hospice center of PL?
I don't know what you would like. So the game's about numbers, right? I think we can all agree that they have boiled it down to basically just a numbers thing. Yeah, you either have the numbers or you don't. If you have the numbers, you engage and fight and win wars. If you don't, you get fucking curb stomped and you go away. We've had enough conflicts over the past year. I think NC Dot is just gonna swell up full of people of like-minded beliefs, I guess you would say, which it's actually just. The guys from Band of Brothers pretty much just made more friends over the past decade. Is if you look at the core leadership of NC Dot, they all have some part that have played in that old alliance, which is kind of funny a little bit, I guess. If you play this game long enough, it all comes back around. Same thing with like goons hanging out with the Russians all of a sudden again after fucking like 7 years on a break while the Russians went off and botted it up in the drone regions or whatever other dumps. Anyway, like I think that's just where those kind of people that like that kind of aggressive gameplay are going to end up. Because it's, like I said, you can be Tri if you want to, or you could be PL if you want to, but you're going to stop becoming a mover and or shaker because you just don't have the ass to push through the timers anymore, or to do the work that needs to be done, to control Sov, to hold Sov, to take Sov, to do stuff like that. Like, I feel like the limit right now is like if you're not a 5,000 man alliance, you should probably not step up to the plate, or you're gonna get fucking shit smacked out of you.
Well, I mean, there's always room for smaller alliances out there, and there's always room for that out there. The problem is that the room that they move into is the
somebody
room.
Right, yeah.
It's the room that the big dogs don't want or not have.
Well, no, they want them to have it because from time to time somebody needs to feed, right?
Right.
You know,
go over there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the big dogs want them to have it. I'm saying they get the space that the Imperium, that PL, the NC Dot are like, we don't need that space. That's the space that the other smaller alliances are allowed to go get.
Sort of. I mean, like, you have alliances like Tickle, and Tickle is an Australian alliance full of actual human cocksuckers. I hate every standing man in the alliance.
Like actual human ones?
You can't dislodge them because they're Australians, and they control, like, they fight against basically fraternity a lot, and they control their space, fairly well for a tiny little alliance, but you can't get them out because of the fucking dumbass mechanics that they get. Like, hey, I wonder what happens if you let somebody time zone lock their shit and they're Australian. Well, you'll never get them all. The same thing with the Russians. It's just a big headache for anybody not Russian, not Chinese, and not Australian to fight during. And even like the Australians can't really fight the Russians. They're off by just enough that it's a big fucking pain in the ass.
But anyways, I do want to move on to March because March had one of the biggest changes of the year. It actually had another. You know what? March was actually a good fucking month as far as things to talk about.
Was that the Alpha Clone month?
All right. You know what? I'm going to take this in a reverse order from what I have on here. Well, hold on. Actually, a discombobulated off order. Anyways, Rorqual Nerf number 2 came in during the month of March. So already in January we had the Rorqual nerf. The second nerf of the year that affected the Rorqual came through in March as well, or it was at least announced in March. I think it may have actually come through that month. So I don't want to discuss that now, because we've already had we've already had a kind of big discussion on Rorquals and all that kind of stuff. But the second big thing that occurred that month was the EVE NT Championship occurred. Okay, yeah. And not that the EVE NT Championship itself was somehow better than past EVE NT Championships or whatever, but more along the lines of they went and totally broadcast from a legit frigging broadcasting facility, what was comparable to, and I may be saying that like way too, I may be downplaying that. Comparable to what the Alliance Tournament final round type stuff is. And they really showed what players could do, number one, with the connections that people out there may have, like Nash definitely has connections with people who have that kind of equipment and whatnot, but more along the lines of what players can do, not just, in conjunction with CCP.
It was better than CCP's coverage, in my opinion.
Are you guys sure you're not confusing the Alliance Tournament with the EVE NT?
No, we're talking about the thing that they did earlier in the year before we even got to before we even got to their coverage during the Alliance Tournament. When they were broadcast, I'm trying to think now of. They really did a bang up job with that EVE NT commentating.
Yep.
And I think it showed people like what could be done, like. And we haven't even gotten to the Alliance Tournament subject, which will actually come later. I'm only referencing it now because that's when there was like a glimpse at what it could be, because it only got better later on.
Agreed.
Right? Okay.
Okay. So RJ just resubscribed for 6 months, and also I realized, was it Roanan or Rode? Someone resubscribed while the intro was playing. I believe it was Rowan.
That was Dom. No, that was Dom.
No, Dom. Oh, yeah, it was Dominic. I think it was 4 months. Sorry, Dominic. I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I didn't call it out because I forgot, but
or Twitch Prime or Amazon
Prime. Thank you guys
or
for the resubs.
Netflix Prime or whatever the hell. Yeah.
But Doug, it's a long history of one-upmanship between players and developers, right? It's pretty much in everything. It's also how they took over Las Vegas.
Well, yeah. Yes. Oh well. That took it over from a different way, right? But I think there are things that CCP does because it's part of kind of the business that business that they do, and then there's like the players that can come through and go, look, if you have that capability, we have this other capability that could be at least equal to yours, so therefore you need to up your game.
And it's the same with things like how the API came about, and I think the only thing left that they've not actually been able to kind of steal from the player base is the map. They've not actually been able to outdo Dotland maps.
I don't know, man. I used to like my little flip maps thing, my hard copy maps. Like even people are like, oh yeah, I use Dotland. I'm like, no, I use my maps that I got from.
I remember. Did you have that? Because someone else had a thing like that.
Like in a binder, yeah. It was like before, this binder of maps.
Yeah, before GARPA and before all that stuff was really coming out. Yeah, I remember there was someone else in PNG that used one of those.
I think it was the same people that did Eon Magazine and all that kind of stuff.
I had a binder of maps.
A small funny side comment. The whole development of the EVE API and now the ESI came about with the team that actually took over and made it illegal to scrape the memory and all that stuff. And Fox4, that was one of the last ones to have heavily influence on working on the ESI. When he left, he actually started doing scraping in Albion and developing a project pretty much like what players did way back in the day.
I come back and nobody's talking.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say Albion's developed by another CCP dev as well, so it's kind of funny how the world kind of works like that. Yeah, Grayscale, yeah.
So these were, Eon presents EVE strategic maps.
Oh, you still have them?
Created and produced by Serenity Steel. That was the. This is actually the second one I had.
Are they laminate? You can use like dry erase markers and draw battle plans and shit on them. Because I'd love that. I would buy it just to do that. I don't even see anything.
That right there is the map of Iridia.
Damn.
No, well, okay, no, you couldn't. No, they weren't laminate. You couldn't use dry erase markers, but they did come with these little stickers that you could put on solar systems when a station went up in it. Because obviously, when they printed it, right, it's like that's just it. It can't change, right?
Right.
So if a station went up or something like that, you could sit there and kind of put this little circle on, little yellow circle sticker pack that they gave you, to put on there. But I'm gonna tell you what. At the time, I was playing EVE with one monitor, and obviously didn't know every connection that was out there and things like that. I'd say that this was like front and primary on my freaking desktop.
Dirk, are you serious?
I swear to God, yeah, because back then, what was I going to do? Flip off EVE to go over to to go over to this Dotland thing that sort of had a little different layout?
I still don't like Dotland as much because it's a great I use it for a lot of stuff like jump calculations and stuff like that. But I mean, like, the layout of the systems in Dotland is not the layout physically how they are like that in the actual game, which bugs me. It bugs me.
This is like a baby boomer describing an 8-track to a millennial.
Yeah. So it's like
Rain is looking lost.
So like if I needed a map, I just the F10 key has been my friend forever. That's just what I use.
You were not scared, Rain, when Dirk talked about single monitors and using paper maps and stuff like that. Next, he was going to talk about corded phones.
That's what I did when I played consoles when I was young. So when I was doing Legend of Zelda stuff, you had your little guidebook or whatever back in early 2000s.
Those are so cool.
Okay, so
or you go to game FAQs or game facts.
Hold on, it's $24.99 sub.
Okay, so there's different sub levels. It's the gold. It's the gold sub level. Okay, so
is that the blowjob sub level?
Yeah, it is. It is. Man, I gotta try and pronounce Rafadog. Dude, I'm so bad at leet speak, but Rafadog23. Thanks for the $25 sub. That's the gold donation.
Damn.
Thank you very much.
Tier 3.
Yeah. What does he get for that? Other than obviously.
Well, we can't discuss that on stream because it's illegal. So it's.
I mean, well, I don't know. Is it? I mean, it's not real money trading, so we're not going to get,
If we
prostitution's legal, okay? It's your body. You can decide
it's not legal.
In reverse with
it is God of War in reverse. Rafadog is God of War in reverse. Oh my God. Play that record fucking backwards.
Oh my God.
Anyways, okay, so we got off on the whole fucking maps thing. Whatever, you know what? At one point, EVE was fucking analog. I mean, that's just the fucking way it was. And
okay, now I get
you know what? Instead of printing out maps from Dotland and having them there, this book of maps was absolutely fucking incredible. It was, really well laid out. And again, at that time we're looking for, connections to places and, oh shit, that's a fucking dead end and all this kind of stuff. It was way better than a lot of that stuff. Now, even when I got a fucking second monitor, I still relied on that quite a bit. Especially now when I've, got alts up on, monitors and things like that. Those maps are great. But
those look like fun to just
now
go
it's like
through.
collector's item.
I have just always just liked maps. Period. Doesn't matter. I'll sit there and look at a map of like Azerbaijan for no fucking reason,
kids don't remember
and just look
back
at
in
it
the
and
day
start
when we
looking at
used to
towns I
drive.
can't pronounce and looking at roads and shit like that. Like Google Maps is the best thing to ever get invented in this fucking world.
You know what? Google Maps, MapQuest, but you know what? But like before that shit came out, we had actual maps. We had things we bought, like the Rand McNally Road Atlas and shit like that. And you bought it every year because guess what? Roads change.
Yeah,
you needed next year's Rand McNally maps of the all 50 states.
It's still even a problem with technology today. I've used, like, now I use Google Maps, but like when I had like the little dash mounted GPS thing, because I do a lot of driving for work, you would get into, like, if you don't update the map list in those, like I'd come into like intersections where like roundabout, like freeway interchanges and stuff like that, and just looking, you're like, you look at the GPS and you look ahead at how the roads are, you're like, oh fuck.
That's where
none of this is right.
That's where being able to navigate roads and knowing north, south, east, west, and like all that, where you're not reliant 100% on a map or on a GPS.
Well, here's the thing:
really
it's not
skill.
that I don't know north, south, east, west. It's that the road that the GPS is telling me to go on doesn't exist anymore, and now there's this whole new interchange with all these different.
So that's where you figure out, right? Where there's like a bunch of different shit, and you're like, oh, I gotta go. It told me to turn right, which is north. So which road says north?
But if I'm going to a place I've never been to, it's like I don't know where this place is.
Oh, I do that too. Like I've carpooled a shit ton.
I'm horrible.
But I have a good natural sense of direction, and I'm also really good at asking for directions when I get lost.
And you live in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, where it's like you've got like 3 roads to choose from.
Excuse me, because I haven't carpooled to places like Chicago before, which, by the way, is a complete clusterfuck to drive in. Don't ever drive in Chicago. They literally have like roads underground and then one above you, so it's like near impossible to figure out where the hell you're going.
But yeah,
so,
anyways.
Back to EVT versus Alliance Tournament. Isn't well,
no, we didn't get. Yeah, we're not there. But go ahead.
I know, but we were talking about. Isn't CCP starting to rely more on players to do their out of game stuff rather than
CCP? Are you saying that EVT got the tournament thing canceled?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
He's talking about third-party influences out there, and CCP, CCP has benefited greatly, greatly from the third-party community out there to be able to, that element of the EVE community who plays the game and stuff like that, to create things that either they haven't thought of yet or were unwilling to commit resources to, whether it be like, EVE fitting tool or EVEMon for, skill tracking and shit like that, right? Before any of those things came into the game, somebody out in the third-party community created it first because we needed that level of tool.
And now instead of the out-of-game apps and dudes pushing CCP to be better, CCP is now just going like, wow, you're so good at it. You guys fucking do it. Is that not where we're going now?
There may possibly, I don't think we're there yet. I think that what we saw this year in the Alliance tournament, and we'll actually mention this again in when we get to August or whatever. I think that what we saw this year was when CCP handed kind of the early rounds over, instead of to just ISD coverage of the tournaments going on with no commentary and things like that. When they handed it over to EVT, that may have been one of the first times that I can recall where CCP handed over something going the other direction. What they've tended to do over time is sort of take things that players have created out there and assume them into the game. So like, with like ghost fitting and things like that, right? Those fitting tools began out there as a third party thing, but then came into EVE as an actual, sort of piece of it.
Right.
We'll do shot number 2.
Do shots?
Yeah, we'll say one.
We'll pour one up here. And while I pour mine here, I'll sit there and say, okay, so again, like I was saying, March was a big month. We already did EVT, we already did Rorqual Nerf 2. The Plex to Plex Bits thing I think was announced or it came out. No, I'm sorry, it came out then. That's when it came out. That's when it actually came out. Shots. Here's to that, I guess.
I could see that being a really big deal for like people into the Plex market, but
that was
for people that don't really use Plex, I don't know if it really affected them.
That was a really big deal across the board. Number one, because if you like were out of the game at that point and came back and saw that, you know, you had like 5,000 Plex when before you only had.
You're like,
oh
shit, it's a bug. I'm not gonna.
Like, oh my god. Okay.
Sell them for like $1 billion a piece.
We're forgetting that it's simplified and removed the currency, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, they made it much more granular. The whole idea at the time, right? You know, like was causing confusion out there in terms of, you know, what it would do to the Plex market in general. That, you know, when you have something like a stock split, or in this case a Plex split, you know, what that's going to mean for the market. It allowed people to buy portions of what used to be a much larger item, therefore creating somewhat, you know, more demand. For
more
those
granularity and more competition.
Yep.
But we got rid of Aurum. That was the huge game changer,
that was the
right?
other piece
so we
of it.
Didn't have to deal with that bullshit in the shop.
Yep. So we consolidated down from basically 3 currencies to 2, and I mean that right there was absolutely a big giant glowing red dot on the year when they changed that.
Well, and not just aside from like because like I was saying, Nick Bus just resubbed 20 months. Thanks, man.
20 months, man. Damn.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Nick Bus.
Incubus.
So like I was saying, that obviously affected the Plex market in a big way, but people that weren't involved with Plex, which I would probably say is the majority of the people in the game. Like a lot of people, they'll Plex to sub their account, but a month's worth of, you know, mini Plex probably cost roughly the same as a single Plex beforehand. I never.
It was just nice to get rid of that whole back and forth conversion.
Right. So I'm just saying, like,
being able
aside
to use
from
the store and being able to buy in packages and then buy some things from the vanity stuff and then
right. You
use
could like
Plexing and all that. Right?
So it increased the demand for it.
You're sitting on Plex back in the day, right? Plex was not something you could use to buy skins. You used Aurum to buy skins.
Right.
So therefore, you had to go through a conversion mechanism to be able to back out Plex and to go to Aurum, or you had to come in with cash and buy Aurum and things like that, right? I mean, like it simplified things.
It did
greatly in order for them to get their whole transaction system over to something that was overall more beneficial, but in so doing,
it raised the demand for Plex, right?
It created a higher demand for Plex.
Because now all these people that weren't using it are now
Plex
using
prices
it.
higher.
As
well as on the day of conversion and all that, right? Basically allowed people out there to reset Plex prices. It allowed them to basically say, oh, you know what? I think this is something that's going to have more demand to it. Therefore, what I used to have 1 Plex, which is now worth 500 of these new Plex, I am now going to put on the market, at a higher rate. I'm going to put these on the market again at a higher rate and reset the market higher right on that first day.
Okay, well that's what I'm saying. So it increased the demand for Plex, which probably drove the price. I know the prices got all fucked for a little while, and then they settled again, but probably at a higher rate. But for the mass general public that don't use Plex a lot, did that really cause
Massachusetts General Hospital?
Well, Drayden, the thing that
I'm just
happened
saying,
was
did that cause a big impact on the rest of the player
base? The vanity shop, right, would have gone through the actual process of buying it with real money, but you added the ease of use and utility of actually getting access to the shop from ISK-based trading. So you increase the amount of interest of actually buying vanity stuff. I still don't know if Rain became a trillionaire and all that, but I know that skins is her thing.
No, I love skins, but yeah.
Rain's so into skin.
So Drayden, as a person who doesn't deal in Plex, I'm not sitting on a pile of Plex. I'm the guy you're trying to talk to.
Right.
It made absolutely no difference to me whatsoever.
That's what I was getting. I was like, the people that just don't use Plex don't really do anything with it. Like it doesn't it caused an impact in the people that dealt with Plex, and it caused more people to start dealing with Plex. But all the people that didn't get into the whole Plex thing, did all the changes over there cause any kind of fallout or effect on the other people anyway?
Stuff, right? Most of the vanity items increased in value at the same time.
Sure,
but that's
because
the
now
only
they're
thing...
tied to this higher level of Plex. Absolutely.
And that's the only thing I've ever used Plex for is vanity stuff. I bought those Blaze skins with Plex.
So you
That's
did
it.
use Plex.
I
So
did
Manic-
use Plex. But
Manic
that's what
Velocity-
Caleb was saying. It's only for vanity.
It's calling
stuff,
for a
not
shot.
really.
Manic Velocity's calling for a shot.
You know what? We have to do it because it's fucking Manic.
Okay,
but-
I know,
Yeah,
right? And we
Manic
also
and-
we're halfway
But-
through the show.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say we are 1 hour into the show and we're only a quarter of the way into the fucking year. So you know what? As big
Shoot
as
'em
fucking
off.
Plex was, and again, that was a number of fucking shows of conversation. Like even with you guys, like even without other people that knew what a fucking Plex was or like how like currencies work or anything like that. It's like we talked about it on a number of occasions.
There was pushback for the Orem conversion though.
Shut
too,
the
because
man.
They were going to waste some Orem.
Yeah, that caused a lot of fun drama.
Now, moving on to April. April, I'm just going to skim through a couple of these things here. Test announced their Project Manhattan, which was basically an internal Test Alliance thing we are going to fucking mine, we're going to fucking rat, we're going to do all the goddamn things, we're going to make the biggest fucking Dread Bomb fleet in history. And then we're going to blow it up someplace. But, we don't know where we're going to blow it up just yet. While at the same time, in the month of April, PL Dread bombed 350 billion ISK worth of Rorquals that were apparently owned by one dude, which is vaguely reminiscent of this dude that just died with 200 and change, not too long ago.
Wait, was that the guy that
no,
died
replaced
during
it,
the...
replaced it the day after.
Yeah, was that the guy that died during the State
Anybody
of the
who's
Union?
flying 350 billion ISK worth of fucking multi-boxed, Rorquals, yeah, I guarantee you probably replaced them the next day.
I am also pretty sure that's the guy that lit 50 Sinos at once or whatever, and at the same exact instant, and definitely wasn't input broadcasting.
Pretty sure that's the guy
hold on a
who
second,
currently
because-
is no longer playing.
Yeah, he got
Because
banned.
my understanding
He's out
is
now.
that guy that lost the 350 billion ISK worth of Rorquals was eventually banned for input broadcast.
Yeah, for sure. It was when all the Sinos went up at once, it was kind of like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, wait. Whoa.
You're not that bad, motherfucker.
He just has
He's
high
also-
APM, you guys.
Damn, it just got bright in this system.
He was also the
can't
guy
shoot.
that put the first Keepstar in Delph. So, fun
Oh,
fact.
nice.
Well, hold on. So why did they take that Keepstar away?
No, it's still there.
Why not? That should be fucking fruit of the
I don't
poisonous
know.
tree.
Dirk petitioned it.
And you know what?
Petitioned
And
it, Dirk.
every Keepstar that came after that should be taken down because they used that one to stage at him to put all the other ones up.
Fucking-
This is how the fruit of the poisonous tree works, people.
Frickin'
You're right.
Pope
Take
Dirk
it all
coming
away.
down delete this sin!
Delete it.
Shame.
However, also in April of that year was FanFest, obviously.
FanFest,
So
yep.
those of you guys, talk about what was FanFest like this past year?
It was my
It was
first
really
fan
good.
The
fest.
14th anniversary.
Oh yeah, go on, blast him.
Yeah, it was my first fan fest. First time actually traveling outside of the continental United States for me. Fucking 50 years old, never been outside the United States.
Foreign virgin.
Yeah, seriously. So I get to go to Iceland, of all places, probably the coldest, wettest, windiest place on the godforsaken planet.
Yes.
But my God, it was great. You get to meet a lot of different people who are on the extra level of being, nerdiness about Eve, because this is what that fan fest. You go to Reykjavik, you talk about the game. You're there for the social activities, but you do the game mechanics. You talk about the game functionality. You talk about all those different kind of things. So you're kind of immersed a lot more than Vegas. So it's a different experience. For me, it was great. I loved it. Met a lot of new different people because, a lot of the European folks I don't see because I'm West Coast US. So it gives me an opportunity to, interact.
It's hard
and
for them to get to
exchange
Vegas
ideas.
also. I mean, you get some people from Europe, some people from Australia going to Vegas, but it's so expensive for them that it's a very small amount compared to, and it's reversed for FanFest. I bet most of the people going to FanFest are Europeans.
But prices are coming
definitely.
down, right?
Yeah, the prices that I've been checking and watching tickets, airline tickets have been fluctuating for me from Vegas to Reykjavik right around $750, and it's been topping out between $750 and $810. So that's not bad. And I'm
it's
still
expensive.
Thinking about it.
Because a couple of FanFests ago, I wanted to go, but I looked at just the airfare, and this is after they added the direct Iceland Air flight from Seattle. So it's I just take a quick Spokane to Seattle and then Seattle over to Reykjavik. And it was $1,370. I was like, I can't spend
Even
that.
with Iceland Air?
Yeah, that was through
Yeah,
Iceland
that's
Air.
a lot.
That's crazy.
That was just
because,
a quick- that was a
Iceland
quick-
Air is like 600 for me.
Yeah, it was a quick Delta flight from Spokane to Seattle, and then Iceland Air from Seattle straight to
Oh,
Reykjavik.
because you're including the Delta
The
flight.
Delta flight.
I
but
drive to
Delta's
Chicago.
cheap. Round trip Delta
Oh,
to
okay.
Vegas is $300 for me. This year it was $250. So just a one-way flight, or around the one-way there, and then the one-way. So a round trip to Seattle and back on Delta is like $150. Like that's not the majority of the cost was just the Iceland area. It was just expensive. And then I was like, okay, you take in hotel cost and then drink cost, food cost. I was like, I'm going to spend $3,000 to $4,000 there. It's like, I can't do that for a vacation.
Yeah, I think some of the Imperium folks were trying to get to offset some of the Airbnb or rental or place to stay, is get a place that has 6 bedrooms and a whole bunch of different beds. So if you want a room or you want to share a room,
that's the best. Yeah,
they were going to try to do that just to offset cost. And I've been looking at that and seeing what some of the costs are this year.
Rain and Blastum. You have both been to both Eve Vegas and FanFest. Number one, which one's better? Number two, if you're going to FanFest, okay, what should you expect different from going to Vegas? I mean, most of our people out there that are listening right now that we are live are American people, or Canadian, or maybe some Mexicans or something like that. Like this particular time zone, right? So what should they expect that's different? Like other than casinos and shit.
So I know, at least
like how to
I've
get
always
around,
summarized
how to live, how to fucking survive, that like environment.
So
how do you survive?
I mean, it's the same thing. It's walking everywhere. Vegas has a lot more to do. Iceland's a little more like, I mean, you have a ton of restaurants. You're in downtown Reykjavik, but like, I don't know, it's not as like touristy as I think Vegas is. But like I always say, Vegas is for, you go to Vegas for the Eve parties. You go to FanFest for the Eve content, and that's generally how it's almost always been, at least from my assumptions. But like Reykjavik's probably definitely more expensive. It's a lot colder there, especially in April. You get like that Arctic wind. I know when I landed last year it was snowing. If you live like anywhere in the Midwest North or in the Northeast Northwest, you're probably pretty used to it. Blastum probably was a huge shock for him.
Underprepared. I was underdressed.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I'm Midwest, but like nothing really prepares you for that wind. And then obviously, I mean, I feel like I walk just as much in both areas.
Yeah, if you live in Minnesota's got a little bit, like if you live in Wyoming,
I'm not sure why fucking Grath isn't frozen solid. Well, like
if you live in Wyoming, like every day it's like 50 mile an hour winds in Wyoming every fucking day.
That story, that wind was real.
My building is climate controlled, and the woman that lives on the first floor controls the climate, and she's from Chicago. This is her first winter here, and it was minus 40 the other day. It was like minus 37.
Holy shit.
It was actually colder than here. Yeah, for sure. It was colder here 3 days here than it was in Antarctica. I've got a thing that I put on Facebook earlier that gives a side-by-side comparison of Antarctica
it was
and
like
here.
North Minnesota, the Dakotas, and like eastern, like far eastern, like northeastern Montana. There's just something about those areas that the cold is, holy crap. I had a friend
that
live in Cutbank, Montana.
The temperature turned up to like 87. So my apartment is about 1,000 fucking degrees right now. Right now it's 30 below outside, and I have all my windows and my kitchen door open to try and vent my fucking house.
It's better than her being from Chicago and going, I'm used to the fucking cold. I'm gonna keep this turned down, and nothing's getting you upstairs.
I never want to. If I could never sweat again for the rest of my fucking life, I'd be a happy.
I'm the same. I like it cold. Like I literally have my thermostat set to 50 degrees, and it's wintertime, so my room is generally 50 to 55 degrees. And I like it that way. Like that's just what I do.
Yeah.
I can't like people, when I go into places and they have it set to like 75 on the thermostat. I'm like, I'm sweating my ass. I'm like, how do you fucking stand it in here? It's too fucking hot.
You can take off everything and be buck ass naked, and your sweaty ass will still be hot.
It's easy to add layers if it's cold. You can't take off layers. Like even if you get down to like you're just wearing boxers. Like when it's summer here,
there's only so fucking naked you can get.
Yeah, it's like when you're just
like, I'm naked and it's still fucking
it's like,
hot.
I mean, I gotta wear boxers in case hip hop just comes in the door. But it's like when I'm just sitting down in my boxers in my room and it's like that's it. And I'm sweating my ass off. It's like I can't. There's nothing else I can do. This is the best it's gonna get, and it's awful. If it's cold in here, I can put a coat on.
The difference between FanFest and Vegas, there's really no comparisons. They both have Eve content and Eve people and Eve agendas. But the atmosphere is different. The ideas are different.
I guess what I was looking for.
Is different.
Look, okay, those things are different. I guess what I'm looking for is when you go to an Eve Vegas, everybody is very centralized, both in terms of where the event is happening as well as where the main hotel is. Not to say that some people don't stay off at other hotels and things like that, as well as where kind of the main central meeting points are and things like that. At FanFest, it's a little bit different. They don't have big giant hotels like Vegas does. They, obviously the event itself is held at the Harpa, but people are staying out in other places. The bars that they go to are they in the same part of town? Are they?
Yeah. So you have a couple of key bars. So everyone mentions Nora's. Nora's is the key bar for like when you want to meet people. So like if you go to FanFest and come before or after like the actual like 3 days, you go to Nora's. If you're going on the pub crawl, or let's say you don't want to go on the pub crawl, you go to Nora's.
It's the Heart Bar.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
generally more roaming, right? Where people kind of catch up in different locations and ask where people are, and so it feels like you're basically on a fleet roam pretty much all the time. And then of course everyone just crash on Nora's to meet up when they don't know exactly where people are.
And pretty much every bar, I would hit every bar. Yeah, that was close to my B&B, and there was always Eve people there. And this is, and you still had,
pretty much
800, 900 people there.
Same with all the restaurants, right? There would always be a few Eve nerds pretty much everywhere you went, and that's kind of what's kind of cool. You're wondering
having not
where
been there, I would assume that's a norm.
Hanging out right now.
I mean, I would assume that during FanFest, you can pretty much find fucking Eve nerds everywhere because everybody else is pretty much like, are there that many places to go? I mean, like, you would be bound to almost run into anybody. It's just because it's not that big. It's really not that big of a place, is it?
It's really easy. So like a lot of times because most people don't get cars to drive around, so you're pretty much walking, and so you have the main street called Lakaveger. And so that's
where snowshoes or like cross country
nope,
skis?
It's just like it's pretty much you just walk. And so a lot of people will go and walk down Lakaveger, which is where all the main restaurants are, all the main bars are. Now granted there are a lot of places away from there, a lot like a lot of good places, a lot of like sightseeing places, but that's generally where people go to hang out. So Nora's is right off of Lakaveger. A lot of the key restaurants, so I'm thinking like the Laundromat or Prickett, are two really good like breakfast places that people go to hang out. But otherwise it's like if you go just generally walk around and you're like, oh, here's a bar, let's go in and see what it is, then you'll probably find Eve players. If you try to go super far away from downtown or Harpa or CCP's offices, then you're definitely probably not going to find people, but it's still like just around.
So like that dude that typed the wrong name into the fucking town that he wanted to go to in his navigation unit and like ended up on the other side of the fucking island out on some fucking fisherman's peninsula or something. Yeah, don't be that guy. Well, he was not an Eve player, though. He was not an Eve player, just mind you. It was just a fucking news report that came out.
Oh.
But,
I will say that fucking, like, Iceland is pretty awesome, though. Like, it's genuinely just a nice place. The fucking views are just amazing. Like,
it's beautiful.
Do any of you watch Vikings on the History Channel?
I have.
I love that show.
I'm behind.
Are any of you surprised?
I'm like halfway through season 3, so I'm not caught up. But yes.
Okay, so you're not caught up. But I don't mean to give a fucking spoiler here or anything like that. But like for those of you that do watch it, are you even fucking surprised that Floki is the one that apparently found Iceland and is like, oh my god, it's the fucking land of the gods, and you should all come live here with me?
I'm not just surprised.
I love Floki.
Because that guy was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Somehow
Floki's my favorite character, probably.
That has no trees.
Yeah, I would say Floki's probably my favorite character. Like, that guy's just fucking awesome.
But it needs to be governed by a queen in the first era.
It may end up
being... Does that mean he dies? That means he dies.
Governed by a queen.
That means he dies.
Spoiler. But anyways, okay, so we can we can talk about the weather and all that kind of shit for like all kinds of like time and whatnot. We're gonna move on here because we're running out of fucking time. May the first Blood Raider Satio was discovered by the Imperium. I believe it was in Aquarius, wasn't it?
Yes.
I believe it was in Aquarius.
I thought it was discovered by Red Alliance.
They went that no, I think
some other alliance.
I think it was discovered. Okay, I may be wrong now. Okay, I think it was discovered by the Imperium, but the first one to lay an attack on it was Red Alliance with rattlesnakes, and they got fucking like mashed out. Okay, and then maybe somebody else tried, and they got fucking mashed out. And then the Imperium went in and fucking did it in like T1 frigates and stuff like that.
It wasn't Punishers. What did they use? Stolen. It was like a T1 Amar frigate or something they used, I thought.
It was like Punishers.
Punishers.
Yeah, it was Punishers. Okay.
DRF.
Thedinko.
Period basis. Sorry. Thedinko says it was period basis.
Thedinko, 11 months. Thanks, man. Free sub.
But anyways, yeah. So they had worked out this thing with T1 frigates and whatnot to go in and kill this thing that like other ships were like just getting decimated by, and however at the end of that. the reward pops up, and somebody from test warps in and fucking like runs off with like
blueprints.
Was it the Titan blueprint?
Yeah.
It was like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like the goons killed it. Yeah, someone stole the
blueprint. It was the
Moloch.
But,
no, someone stole the blueprint, right? But then the guy got blown up and the blueprint was destroyed, and so the loot basically got So they stole the loot, but they didn't get away with it. But no one got it because they stole it and then got killed.
Yeah. Okay. And then I believe the second one they went after, and I'm trying to remember now back to how Apple Pear was describing this. They went in, they blew up another one, boom. I think that one got taken. There was a Moloch that went out onto the fucking like forums about like, do you want to fucking buy one? And now there's just interceptors fucking swarming all over everything. And basically they sat there and said, this is not worth fucking putting the effort into doing, even in T1 fucking frigates, if what it's going to be is interceptors who just come in and snatch this shit at the end, right?
Yeah, we got a little bit of the feeling of ninja looting from other games.
Yep, no doubt. And CCP, I think recognized that number one, their AI was the AI that they had created, because this is another thing that we kind of skipped over here.
Super thinking that was supposed to adapt to every situation except Punishers.
Well, yeah, exactly. This was no longer just your normal fucking rat AI. This was an enhanced AI that they put in. But it did not, kind of like compensate for, micro warp driving stuff. It was supposed to mimic fleet mechanics, right? But what it kept doing was warping at something that was no longer like in its position, and it couldn't fucking adapt to that. So there were a number of flaws from how the AI acted all the way down to, and when it's going to drop loot. You just can't have this thing.
I'm sorry. I don't want to rehash it, but it's like it can get very complicated and convoluted. But literally, no matter what it comes down to, programming code comes down to if-then-else statements. Roughly, it's all like if this condition.
So you're saying this came down to if-then?
No, I'm just saying like that's how programming works. And generally, when systems calculate what do I do here, it's like, if this condition, I do this. If this condition, I do this. There's all these conditions. So like adaptability is still just reaction to conditions. And so if you know what the reactions to certain conditions,
clause, right? It was the goons clause that was missing, where someone ships down and just puts more men on the field. That was not something that they had coded for.
Right. So like I was saying, it's like, if you know what the conditions are and how the AI is going to react to what conditions, it may take a lot of practice, trial and error to figure out, because it can get very, very, very deep and intricate. But if you can eventually figure out all the steps in there, you can know how the AI is going to react, and then you can plan for that, and you will, like, people will find a way to game it. Like, it's like you can make it the best AI ever, but people will figure it out.
But it's eventually pretty hardcore if you try to upscale all the time. It responds pretty harshly against you.
Right, but sometimes the answer isn't just upscale. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, it's going to react like this. So then when it reacts like this, I do this, which then is going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. You basically make your own if-then-else reactions, and then you just if you can do that and keep one step ahead of what the AI is doing, then you can, come out on top. That might take a lot of work.
And that's why
in World of Warcraft terms, you don't expect someone to show up with 500 level 1 characters instead of 5 level 100 characters.
Hey, right? As long as they don't,
you don't expect that in your code.
As long as they don't stand in shit. Don't stand in colored shit on the ground. Yeah, don't stand in the shit. You'll be all right. That's the code for raids in WoW.
However, what we do know over time is that the best fucking quality assurance testers that exist are EVE players, right? That if there is a weakness they can exploit, they will fucking find it, okay? And we will get to one way at the fucking end of the year where apparently they didn't find it quick enough, or it changed or something like that. But, the other thing that happened in May was that small SP injectors were both announced and released. They were announced approximately a week, maybe less actually, than they were actually released out there. So, a skill point injector became a large skill point injector, and then they created this new thing called a small skill point injector, which was basically 5 1/5 of a large injector. This created a level of granularity within the skill injector market, therefore increasing demand for it. For those people out there, especially alphas in that case, or newer omegas at the time that didn't have the kind of money to be able to buy a full 500,000 skill points, could now buy this thing that was only 50,000 skill points. And roughly with a little bit of premium added, 1/5 of the cost. That was a big move for them. I give them credit for that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was typing.
Underwhelming.
Sure.
I found it very underwhelming and not really an interesting change. It added a bit of granularity, as you mentioned, but that's pretty much like what we're going to mention later. It's like, yeah, so what? It's a feature for a minority of players, and older players with their alts will not use it, so it's going to have pretty much zero impact on the overall game.
It was an iteration on something that was only a few months old, right? Because skill point injectors themselves only came out in November, December of the prior year, and here we are in May of the following year, where they introduce kind of the more granular aspect to it.
Yeah, it's quality of life stuff for very new players, and it's perfectly fine and it works as intended, but it's just not that interesting to 90% of the player base.
No, true. I'm just saying, it's like I give them credit for creating off of that. Now, I'll throw that away later on when we talk about those other forms of injectors that kind of came out, because at least these were player driven and all that kind of stuff, right? The whole market and yada yada yada. June was a big month. You know what? I'm just gonna start off here by going right at the fucking nasty ass part of this. Actually, I can't, because June was just a month of stuff that was bad that was
disaster.
Happening.
Yeah.
Okay, Ghost Training. Ghost Training had apparently been going on since, I don't know, moments after alphas were released in, I think, November of 2016, the previous year. This was something that was discovered by people. It was exploited by people. It was apparently reported, and CCP did nothing fucking about it because they were afraid to do anything about it or say anything about it or whatever the hell it was until they could they were afraid to say anything about it until they could actually fix it. Nobody out in the broader media community or whatever was even bothering to fucking talk about it. But it became a thing, and it erupted when they finally came out and said, it's an exploit. If you're doing this, if you are ghost training like this, and you are doing, it's a fucking exploit.
Which was weird that they took that long to, because it's one thing if it's like, hey, we can't fix this right now. We got to figure out what the coding problem is and work out. But it's like when they see it's an issue and this is not the way it's supposed to go, you can it's the same that they've done for a bunch of other things in the past. Just go out and say, this is an exploit. Don't do this or you're in fucking trouble. And then most people won't do it because they're like, they'll catch me doing this, and there you go. So
Reddit was on top of it.
The fact that it took them that long to say it's an exploit is
CSM
surprising.
caught word of it, and they were on top of it. Okay,
we knew about it. We knew about it and had reported it just after FanFest. That's when we really started to find out about it. There were some people who knew about it before us, definitely. Obviously, the people who really discovered it did, but beyond that, it was kept quiet for a while.
I think the interesting thing that happened was that the CCP changed their stance on how to enforce these things, because quite a lot of people that had kind of been doing it voluntarily or by accident or whatever, they got caught, and then they had a period where they could actually pay the value back and keep their characters and not get banned. So that was an interesting development that I hadn't seen before.
Yep.
So you know what? It was actually kind of fun because the CSM was fucking out for blood. In these meetings, you're like, we think you should probably ban the top 10 people who are ghost training just to show that this isn't okay.
Or they could have done decimation.
Decimation, yeah.
One out of every 10.
One out of every
draw your random number generator that will pick anybody we feel was, and you are
draw your lots.
No. Here's how it has to go, Dirk. It's not random. The community votes on which 10.
No, that's not true. No, that's
community.
No,
I guess they would have had to throw.
No, that's subjective. Like true decimation, you just draw lots, and it's just chance.
Yeah.
Like you might be punished for something you didn't do.
Jen, without like releasing names and all that kind of stuff, and then we would have gotten into a whole different voting.
Which would be funny is that in an
effort to fix it, okay, they tried to put a fix in, and what ended up happening was it didn't fix it, but I don't want to say it randomly because it didn't seem to happen to everybody, but it happened. Their skill queues were paused, whether you were doing this or not doing it. Skill queues got paused out there. There was a period of holy motherfucking shit. Everybody out there, go check your freaking, log in, check to see if your skill queue is still going, whatnot. And we went through the whole paused skill queues kind of like 24 hours.
Yeah, that whole code fix did not fucking work.
And that was, that was one of those kind of moments in EVE where it was like, thanks to social media, thanks to other forms of like communications and things that are out there, right? We were able to communicate to people. This is something you need to go check. Log the fuck in.
Well, and I remember, did they reward skill points to the people?
They did give.
I was saying, they rewarded SP to the people that they found out were affected by that.
That they found out were affected.
Which does not mean everyone, right? It's the ones that
said something. I think probably the first time that where there was some sort of kind of fuck up on their part, that they didn't just sit there and go blanket. This has been going on now, for this many hours since the point that we ran this fucking script. Blanket, everybody gets this. They actually put in what appears to be some legwork to determine who was actually affected by this, and then give them only the skill points that they lost back. Which I think, even looking back on it now, while obviously a very detailed way of sort of doing it, probably overall just a big fucking waste of time. In an era where skill points, I don't know if they have the same kind of, overall value in the game that they once did.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if
they have value now, because
if you're getting the skill points that you potentially lost from the whole pausing thing, then you're at no loss. You're at no gain, but you're at no loss, so you can't complain. Because the only thing you would have lost is the skill points that you would have been training, but if they give those back to you, then,
Or the potentiality of you're extracting those skill points to sell it. That would have been... That's the only inherent value.
So they postpone your extraction if you're...
Exactly.
But that's such a select few cases that you can't base a redemption thing like on something as small of a population as that, though.
However, again, moving on, because we are now 33 minutes until the end, and we've got a 3-minute video we've got to play at the end. This was immediately followed up by what became known as Pacifier Gate. Okay, and Pacifier Gate was, if you went to FanFest, if you had a ticket for FanFest, you were meant to get a Pacifier, one of the new Concord Pacifier, and whatever that other fucking ship was.
Concord,
but who cares?
Frigate.
Okay, yeah, the other one. Okay, you got the frigate and you got the cruiser, I believe, by going to FanFest. All right. One of them was known as the Pacifiers, and the way everybody was fucking whining over this, we decided to call it fucking Pacifier Gate because everybody needed to fucking suck on a pacifier. But anyways, what it was instead of you as a player going there would get one of these, they decided to award it to every account associated with what appears to be the email address of who you bought the thing under. So in an era where they had given... where they had created kind of skill point injections and,
zombie farms.
Fucking zombie farms and things like that, right? People were getting hundreds of these things, all right? And it was one of the things that began to sit there and say, whoa, what the fuck? This guy got a bunch of these limited edition type things and, yada, 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 right? This was then followed up by... Or actually, I don't think it was followed up by. I think it may have actually been preceded by the third Rorqual nerf that had happened since the beginning of the year, as well as a nerf to fighters, as well as a nerf to mining anomalies. All right?
It was Hold My Beer month.
Rorqual's still OP.
Oh man, that time was the fucking worst to be on the CSM.
because all this shit started to come in, and and this ultimately led to a fucking mild revolt that a lot of people were trying to call it the Summer of Rage. Okay, we called it the late spring of mild discontent. Okay. Because the real Summer of Rage actually got people fucking enraged. They were like shooting monuments. They were like, there were some people out there trying to gin this up into Summer of Rage 2, and it never quite reached that level.
It should have been, though. But it should have been.
Number one, it wasn't even in the summer. It was still in the late spring. We hadn't gotten to June 22nd or whatever, 21st yet.
21st.
Like, you should have been offended at the cash grab because that's exactly what it was.
Yes, you should have been. But the level of displeasure that was out there preceding the actual Summer of Rage in 2011 hadn't reached those levels that it did here. Although people, because of what happened in 2011, were trying to gin up sort of the same level of unhappiness out there. And it never quite reached that. And I think that veterans who'd been around long enough kind of realized that this hasn't reached that level. It doesn't mean that CCP shouldn't respond to it, but it hasn't reached that level.
I don't think the younger generation is capable of that level of anger. I don't think the people that play the game are capable of that anymore. Like they weren't. I wouldn't say brought up the same way, but they're not the same kind of people.
Disappointments, right? It was very different. The Summer of Rage was disappointment on disappointment on disappointment. It was just horrible. This was just small annoyances and CCP being stupid.
I thought the Summer of Rage was more about CCP's intent to squeeze the game for money through bullshit vanity items that were ridiculously priced.
Yeah, you're talking the original one, right?
Right. Yeah, and that is what I feel like. Shit. Yeah, that is exactly what I feel like they did for the first 6 months of this year. They've calmed down since, right? But to say that they didn't know they were going to have to nerf the Rorqual with the numbers that it came out with, and then the witness in the first few weeks, it happened after they put skill injectors in the game. So, of course, everybody and their fucking brother bought a shit ton of injectors to get into these ships that they released purposely broken, in my opinion. Like, they knew there's no way that anybody that works for this development company that has anything to do with the spaceships, because they all used to play video games with us, and I know none of them eat foam couch cushions for breakfast, right? So they all know fucking damn well when they release these ships, the numbers could not stand the way they were. They would fucking break everything in the goddamn game, and yet they waited until the fucking crest of people injecting their way into Rorquals before they started the nerfs.
It felt like a bait and switch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they squeezed this fucking game at the beginning half of this year for money, and they've displayed an intent. And I feel bad because I like a lot of the people that work for the company, and I don't blame them. I blame the actual, upper management levels
Senior
that are
management.
that direct the company that
Which was
travel
where
down
the
this
blame
path.
got thrown back then.
Right, and it's where it should be thrown now. Like people that blame Fozzie for shit and stuff like. Ravi's a good dude. I don't believe he does anything with malicious intent. I believe he does what his boss makes him do. I believe he knows more about the game than half the people that are watching your show right now will ever even fucking be able to contain in their tiny squirrel-sized brains. But I think that the management of the game feels that their game may be nearing like an end of life cycle, and they're going to try and milk it for every fucking dollar like it was a broke back cow in a barn.
The difference that I'm trying to put in as to what led up to the Summer of Rage and what led up to the late spring of mild discontent was the fact that there was a bunch of underlying issues that were really brewing about how the game was legitimately broken on multiple levels out there during that time, and then things happened regarding monetization.
Yeah, and then they wanted to milk it for money instead of fixing it, right?
Well, as opposed to now where, number one, we're already used to the idea that they are trying to monetize certain things, and people weren't completely dissatisfied with all the little things that were broken that had been for a number of years in some cases. Like it just didn't reach the full potential because it wasn't quite the same level of like underlying circumstances. And then all this stuff happened, whether it be ghost training, whether it be the pause skill queues, whether it be pacifier gate, whether it be the Rorqual and fighter nerfs, like those were the tipping point, but the foundation of why people were dissatisfied was just not as bad now as it was then.
Which I think has a lot to do with the expectation issue, right? The fact that after Siegel took over, everything was hyped down, right? So we didn't have these huge expectations or pipe dreams being rolled out.
Right,
and
exactly.
That's exactly what we got in the Summer of Rage. It's like all these fantasies and dreams that they could never fucking deliver on, and they all fell apart, and no one was happy. No one got any of the dreams that they had.
Yeah, me and Jeff Rader still have our titty bar that we intend to open. Like, I want my titty bar. I want you to come in and be able to gamble while some fucking virtual bitch shakes her ass in the corner and we drink beer.
And we do casino?
Yeah. If you guys make a titty bar, I'll be there.
That's going to be the new MMORPG. I'm going to
probably not many of you are around.
Is it like a real one, or is it like is it going to be like hentai titty bar? Because I don't care about that.
I mean, I was just going to have overweight guys in my titty bar as my dancers.
Then sign me fucking up.
The response, okay? The response from CCP in this particular instance of kind of, the EVE player base sort of, rising up and whatnot, was relatively swift. CCP Seagull, prior to going out on maternity leave, posted one of her video postcards going, "We hear you. We know that there are also underlying issues out there that we need to address, related to kind of, sovereignty in the citadels and, things like that, right?" So that came. We still had to wait a little bit to see where that would go next, okay? However, the one thing I do want to mention that also happened in June of this year that was different than previous years was we had already had the teams announced for Alliance Tournament, I think it was 15. 15 was this last one. Was it 50? Yeah, I think it was 50. Was it? Anyways, the fucking number I got on here might actually be wrong. But what they came up with this year was 32 teams got in by way of either their standing when they came out of the last Alliance tournament.
Pedigree. So top 16 teams from last year.
Their pedigree. Okay, so the top 16 teams from last year. And then you had to do a
silent auction.
Silent auction for the next 16 teams. And then 32 teams were getting in through this new feeder round system. Mm-hmm. And this was something that I thought was absolutely fucking exceptional. I really like this idea of fighting it out to even get into the Alliance tournament. It kind of created a tournament before the tournament. What do you guys think?
I thought it was amazing. And I think it helped. One thing that really helped with that was the introduction of Thunderdome, which is I want to say not test server, but it's a server purely
the CCP Logipro Dome.
The CCP Logipro Dome, where it was purely to allow players to run their own tournament stuff. 1 second.
The retirement.
Do you guys think they should do that like AT&T Stadium at Texas Field or whatever, like Dallas Cowboys, whatever? It's should they call this the Logipro Dome?
No, I mean Thunderdome works because that's what it is. But I mean, the feeder round. So a lot of times with these Alliance tournament stuff is players practice, but it takes so much work to do on Singularity, on CC, and then there's all this spying and this and that. But Thunderdome really allowed players to get used to the tournament tool. So what they actually see when banning ships, what they actually see on field, kind of how it's all set up. They allowed the use of micro jump beacons, which we saw amazing plays with those within the feeder rounds as well as the normal Alliance tournament. And because in the past, it gave players a lot more solid chance at trying, because everyone talks about, the Alliance tournaments for all these rich people, blah, 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 which is how the silent auction goes. Top 16 teams usually dish out tons and tons of plex to be able to secure their spots if they didn't win last year. And then it used to go by a random lottery. So if you didn't get in through either of those ways by having money or luck, you just didn't get in. Whereas now the feeder rounds, you had to prove yourself of being able to be entered into the Alliance tournament.
Which was kind of cool, because some of the teams, the comps they brought were just not something you normally see in the Alliance tournament, which was great.
The word you're looking for is good.
Well, yeah, but but sometimes it's fun to watch non-meta shit. It's the meta's gonna win you the thing, but if you bring non-meta shit, you probably won't win, but it's still fun to watch because it's what the hell have they got here? What is
it there?
Wasn't there a whole tank team? Wasn't there a team that whole tanked the shit out of their whole comp?
They whole tanked, I believe. One team whole tanked their Armageddon or Balgorn.
Yeah, which
and they
was
just
amazing.
Sat in the middle and did fuck all.
The fact that it was whole tanked and they couldn't break it until the very end or whatever, and they won the match because of that. It was it's that. That's the shit I'm looking for. That's the entertainment I want. Not just watching meta comp versus meta comp and just who's better pilots.
The same shit over and over, or oh wow, oh great, look they're bringing ECM, wow, or something like that.
I don't know. I just love anyone that brings a whole tank comp to anything. They have. I'm rooting for them.
But it really allowed teams.
Isn't there another tournament that has feeder rounds to start off? Doesn't EVT start with
so EVT does what they call like a cup. So it's kind of a similar concept. You have to enter the cup before you can actually enter. Sure, but you have to do that in order to get into the actual championship, which is a way to kind of have like a tournament without like a tournament and within a tournament, I guess. But like that one's, I think.
How has nobody had a tournament not called Two Pilots One Cup?
Oh my god!
Because most tournaments are more than just two pilots.
How have we and Eve fucking missed that?
I was gonna feed onto that, but it's like I'm not even gonna go there.
We fucking missed that. How did the Imperium go with Anger Games and not Two Pilots One Cup?
No, Dirk.
For obvious reasons.
But no,
nobody wants to see.
Nobody
wants to see jet cans all over the field, and then people scooping them up, and then re-jet canning them, and then it just turns into a fucking mess at that point.
Jesus Christ! Like, are you kidding me?
No one wants to go there.
What the fuck?
What were you gonna say, Jim?
We'll get to a weird place fast, didn't we?
What month are we on?
Yeah, we did. Let's
oh my god! Listen to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody. We have to fucking accelerate. It's like, look, I don't want to fucking hold this over. It's like I was really trying at the beginning of tonight to like actually get through this shit. So it's like, okay, we did that. AT feeder rounds. Okay, look, in July, as part of a response to what actually happened in June with the whole summer, late spring of mild discontent, CCP held a live Q&A that was absent the Q's and the A's. Like, basically, they just came out and, like, made a fucking statement and then said, peace out, bitches, we're gone.
And people were just sitting there waiting for that show, and it was like, okay, is it already over? What?
Boy, that was fucking great. I still remember fucking CCP Falcon's reaction when he was watching it. And he was like, oh, what?
CCP Rise tried to salvage that too. He was in chat typing, like you could see him on the monitor and shit.
Dream Door Raffle, Mine Class. Kale's got something out there.
Yeah, Kale's gonna give something away. I'll give it like 2 minutes. People just, if you haven't typed in chat in the last 5 minutes, everyone type something in chat, and you'll get.
Somebody fucking type something.
Just type something in chat, and Kale Decadence is gonna give you something away from Mind Clash.
But also in July, look, Hard Knocks and Friends killed the first Wormhole Keepstar. I thought that was an exceptional fucking story, like of how they rolled in all the shit they needed to. It again went into the whole fucking planning of players. The ability of players to plan, to be able to go through the number of wormholes that they have to be able to bring in the kind of hardware to take down a fucking Keepstar in that environment is absolutely fucking amazing. What those guys were capable of over the course of months.
Cricket. I think I think everyone's been typing for enough. I'm just gonna roll it. All right, many of many.
I hope you got the fucking code before you.
Well, I think Kale's gonna get a hold. Okay, so Kale Decadence.
What if he's out there and says, "Fuck it, bitches, I ain't got one."
Kale Decadence, he can whisper him. Kale Decadence, many of many. Give them a whisper and get that code to them. They win. Grats.
But anyways, yeah. So that was a big thing. And here's where I want to flip back to something we talked about a little bit earlier about EVT. During the Alliance tournament and those first two it was 2 weekends, right? I think 2 weekends, or was it 2 rounds, or whatever the hell it was over the course of 1 weekend. EVT commentated the early rounds. Again, they did it from a. And here, Rain, is where I'm going to go back to where
they did it from a live studio.
Here's where I'm going to go back to say I made a mistake earlier. I don't believe that they did the EVT Cup tournament from the live studio, but here is where they really fucking showed what players can do in this game. They did it from that live fucking studio. They did it at a fucking production level that now everybody sat there and said, you know what, this is what we expect during the coming week's rounds of the Alliance tournament. They absolutely blew the fucking doors off, and you know what? Continued fucking props to them. This is why when people sit there and say, "Well, what's going to happen to the fucking Alliance tournament?" You know what? I think that there are some players out there that you can hand some of this shit off to, and they can actually take it over and be able to, legitimately give a reasonable level of the same quality, if not higher, than what CCP is capable of doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they really
pretty
raised the
much.
bar.
Like even, I think the best thing about the first couple of weekends though is that we were able to kind of not take it 100% seriously, but kind of actually have a bit of fun with it every now and again. You know, talking about some of the more clowny elements of.
I think that's where you
those
unveiled
first
your
rounds.
outfit. Like one of your first outfits, like I think was unveiled there, right?
Yeah. God, that was the
Gold suit.
18
Gold
before
suit.
this one.
The gold
no,
suit?
No, before that it was
No.
the pink shining.
Yes.
Oh, the hat.
fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that was fun.
But yeah, anyways, you know, so EVE-NT totally fucking stepped up to things, and I think that, you know, honestly, with a more limited CCP oversight to rules, I think that EVE-NT is more than capable of putting together. Now look, this is not one of those things where I think that, you know, CCP should just sit there and go, fuck it, players, take this over for free. Well, I think that CCP should semi-contract with
Right. Because I was going to say, I will have to say, I watched. I did not watch every single match of the feeder round, but I watched a bit of the feeder rounds, and I watched a bit of the Alliance tournament that CCP did. And I'm sorry, I have to honestly say, EVE-NT's production quality was leaps and bounds way above what CCP did. EVE-NT fucking nailed it. EVE-NT's whole thing with the joke graphs, like the graphs they did, and all the little funny memes and the videos, and just
I think they had more technology to work with. I'm gonna be straight up honest.
The people who I don't know the names. I know it was mentioned, and I forget now. But the people behind, was it Alexi? Okay, yeah.
Alexi was the graph guy.
Yeah, the graph guy, but all the people behind the production, and not just the production, but I mean like the people on the cast, like, you know, Apothe, Rain, all these people. They did an amazing fucking job for the feeder rounds. It looked so good, and then it was almost
not the feeder rounds. The first 2 rounds of the real tournament.
Well, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, but I'm saying like it looked so good that it almost was diminishing to when CCP took over, and they took over like the later part. It's like this was better in the first couple of weeks. It really was. Like, I mean, like EVE-NT fucking nailed it. I'm just that's the bread and butter.
The matches got better. The matches got better.
But the production quality of EVE-NT
on point.
Yeah, the production quality of EVE-NT was on fire.
This is why I think that this is one of the few places where they can actually turn over something that they do as a company to a subcontractor that they trust, that has proven, okay, that they are capable of handling some of this stuff. And it's not to say that other people shouldn't be able to bid on it, and some other people shouldn't be able to say, hey, look, you know what, we want to give it a go too. And therefore you give them the feeder rounds and see how they work out and things like that, right? But EVE-NT has created their entire fucking situation around doing their own thing, and now could could be brought in a way like Vegas was brought into the fucking fold, but now in reverse.
What's EVE-NT called now? They're Plus 10 something?
Yeah,
Plus 10 Gaming is just the esports department, but yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of rolled up under Plus 10, which allows for other games, but yeah, EVE-NT is still around and still exists. Same group of people as well.
And this would allow some money to be spun off and allow like Crossing Zebras to like pay writers and shit. I mean, like you can see the trickle down effects.
It's kind of like the Matani.com switching to INN. So like, okay, now we're not tied.
No, it's not quite the same thing.
Well. I'm just saying it's similar in the fact that like, they changed their name to not be tied to a single source.
I can see INN like
they changed their name to be
fuck this shit. We need to get our act together and like get it on this whole fucking like EVE gaming.
I'm just saying like
competition, man. It's called the marketplace.
Matani.com switched their name because Matani.com ties them to EVE and the Matani, whereas INN opens it up to whatever they want. And EVE-NT is like, okay, it's focused on EVE, and now they're opening up to broader regions. So
yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yep.
You know what also happened in July? The first agency event.
We're not going to get to the end of the year. We got
like
come
10
minutes.
12 minutes.
I'm just saying.
No, we got like 9 minutes.
There's
a reason we're trying to get through all of this so everybody can see kind of the accumulation of what actually happened in 2017 instead of like sitting there and saying that, you know what, nothing fucking happened in 2017. Test also deployed north, asterisk, okay? The Imperium killed
I wanted to talk about this part because this was fairly fucking
astronomical. Using the new mechanics, okay? And at that point, there was none of this, you know, whole fucking swarming interceptor thing that was going on out there because CCP had released fixes to the whole Blood Raiders Satoyo mechanics thing.
Yeah, dropped a larger box that you couldn't pick up with an interceptor.
Calm down. We have a clear slot after this.
Do we really?
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Do we now?
Do we really now?
Imagine that. Dirk's goddamn mouth bumping the guy after him. Where's Drunk Canadian? Didn't he get real mad about that?
Wait. Okay, so wait. So Julie's not up next?
Nope.
Okay, so
I'm
oh
going
my
to
god,
make
this is
vegan
gonna
food
end in
then.
disaster.
Okay, so no. We've been mitigating our drinks, Rain. We're good. So here's what we're gonna do, because I was gonna do the thing at the end of the show. We'll do the quote unquote end of the stream at the normal time, and then I'll close the stream for just 1 second, just because of the
Why would you close it? Just play that thing
For the podcast.
Well, no, Dirk, because the replays,
goes
just
on.
to make a break in the replay thing. And then I'll close the stream and then just reopen it immediately.
Why?
Just to make a break so that they can have the video for open comms, and then they can have the second portion of the slot. It's for technical reasons.
Or if they're actually freaking listening to it, like on a podcast, or on the video on demand or whatever afterwards.
When I make,
be like, oh, this is happening, but now they're just talking.
When
about
they see the
things that
video on
don't
demand,
matter
they'll see both, and they just watch both. If they listen to the podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the audio and just combine them both into one single file and give it to.
We'll vote on
Miss Country
that in
way.
exactly like 9
I'm just saying, like,
okay.
it will make. Trust me, technically,
all right, go into August.
Technologically, it'll make it so much easier for
pretend
the
like
whole.
That's what you're gonna do.
Yeah. So
don't make me bring my fidget spinner.
I'm
out.
just saying the technology. It's only for a technology reason, and it's gonna be a 5-minute pause in the break. So.
Your pause.
Everyone here watching will stay around, and they'll come right back.
Nasty boys.
People watching VODs will just watch the next VOD, and then people listening to the podcast will hear it all in one shot. So
all right,
it'll be
so
good.
in August.
Let's go to August. Dirk, let's go to August. All right.
The Imperia moves north in semi-conjunction with Test. Okay, it wasn't quite the whole. It wasn't quite the whole thing. They made a really big announcement about, moving north, how this was going to be the fucking Beelzebub of all things that ever fucking happened in the fucking north, and shit like that. I think there was a fireside chat. I think there was there was
a soda.
I think there was a straight up fucking State of the fucking Goonion that was put out there, like live on air at the time. Everybody get your balls in your hands. We're fucking going north. It's shit.
The deployment zone was kept secret right up until that point. No one knew where we were going.
We'll tell you where to jump.
That's why it was amazing. Anyways,
and then they moved north. Okay, they moved north, and they were coming and hitting at the heart of fucking Pan Fam Central. They were going after Hakonin. They were gonna lay some shit down there. They were gonna bridge out. They're gonna lay down some roach motels and stuff, and the whole north was gonna be burning before everybody fucking knew it. And
nothing happened.
Graf,
they didn't get off.
From your perspective, what do you think happened?
They didn't even get off the undock. Tested more damage.
Well, they got off the undock.
Yeah, they did, and they exploded 50 feet away from it. It's fine. They couldn't even get their own staging fort down in the system they had chosen.
There was
that's how
4 different Fortizar fights, and then we sort of just. Yeah.
And to be fair, that's not necessarily okay. It's slightly a failing because they pick some weak ass doctrines. Like Jackdaws suck. They are shit. And I know everybody likes to fly those and everything. They're great. They're cheap. They're disposable. They're fucking garbage trash, and they can't engage anything.
They were testing them along with Typhoons.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I don't know who said they were a good idea, but they were a bad idea to take and try and actually attack somebody else with. They're not good doctrines. But it also showed all the flaws in the current Salve system, in how much of an advantage the Defender has. And I saw it play out a little differently shortly afterwards when we tried to assault Tickle Space. That's how I know who these fucking pieces of shit are, because they're like a tenth of our size, and we couldn't unhinge them. We couldn't dislodge them, much like the CFC being significantly larger than Pandemic Legion. Generally speaking, able to field 3 fleets to our 1 or 2 or something like that. Couldn't make any dent in anybody. If you attack someone else in their home space under their super cap defense umbrella, whether or not you brought yours or not, I believe you will probably lose. I believe that the ability to reship into apostles, which is all that really matters, or in the case of fucking Test, Minikawas or something like that, if you have that supply on hand in your space, as well as a cache of dictors that everybody keeps around and Hictors and shit like that, you will beat just about anything that attacks your space, short of the entire fucking game hoarding up and whipping your ass. It is a flaw in the system, and there's nothing you can do besides change the system again, which nobody really wants to go through right now.
What did you think
it
of
was
the Roach
also
motels?
the cherry popping for the carrier fleets, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it was more of we've been doing stuff with carriers since they announced the changes. Like, I don't even want to go into half of what. Like, but Dirk, like, we have a pretty meticulous checklist of things you have to prove you know how to do to fly. Anything.
No.
You don't know.
But yeah, I think they made them full SRP.
It's not a checklist. I think there's actually like a list of stuff there that you have to carve into your back.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, because of that, whenever we engage another force with the new fighter mechanics, I believe we are just significantly better at it than they are because we've.
Yeah, that's
which was the entire purpose of that change.
Right.
They basically put new people in carriers, and they used and took benefit from SP injection.
Right.
And then they basically wanted them to try their teeth and pop their cherry. And I think it failed a little bit. They were not as well trained as they had hoped.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I said, it's not as much a knock on the Imperium's military design as it is on the way the mechanics play out in the actual game right now. Like, they might have been great on fucking paper, but the actual functionality of them as you play in the game sucks.
Yeah, they
I mean, it's great for small gang stuff.
In veteran defender space with 16-year-old conscripts in carriers. It didn't work.
All right, real quick, we're gonna do like the end of the whole thing. Toast. I got a little toast I'm gonna do, and then we'll do the video, and then we'll be right.
We just did a shot, so we're gonna do another one.
Yeah. Okay. So
make Dirk go out on the year like he.
Right. Okay. So little build up. So I got a video, guys. Coming up next, I got a bunch of stuff sent in by a lot of you guys that watch the show, videos and pictures and stuff that I had on hand already. So the Open Comms has developed as almost like kind of its own community, which is great because it's something like all of us here, I think I speak for everyone on the show, that we enjoy doing this on Friday. Like, this is something that we look forward to. Like, the end of the week happens. It's like, okay, it's time to do Open Comms. It's fun. Everyone, and it's like not just us, it's you guys too. Like, we work throughout